Gentlemen, let's start with something simple. The story you've been sold about adulthood is not the only story that works. From the time you're a kid, the script is handed to you like it's law. Grow up, get stable, find the one, settle down, merge your life with someone else's life. And if you don't, people talk about you like you're stuck, unfinished, avoiding responsibility, or secretly miserable, as if your life can't be real unless it's co-signed. But here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of men are quietly discovering that the traditional timeline doesn't automatically produce a better life. In fact, for many men, singlehood done intentionally can be one of the healthiest, clearest, most powerful seasons they ever experience. Not because intimacy is bad, not because love is a trap, not because commitment is weakness, because your life is either built by design or built by default. And most men are pressured into building by default. We've got to talk about that pressure because it's not subtle. Society doesn't just celebrate partnership, it treats solitude like a defect. It turns still single into a diagnosis. It frames being unpartnered as a problem to solve, not a position you might choose. It assumes the only reason you're alone is because you couldn't manage to keep someone, as if your standards and your vision don't exist. And it's especially loud for men, because men are taught that their value is proven by external markers: the relationship, the ring, the family photo, the stable image. As if maturity means being anchored to a role, as if independence is a phase you should outgrow. But what if the phase is actually where the foundation gets built? What if being unpartnered isn't the waiting room to real life, but a strategic state where you build the kind of life that doesn't collapse the moment someone leaves? Because that's the real question. Not, are you single, but are you solid? Are you aligned with your own standards, your own values, your own pace? Or are you rushing into a partnership to quiet the noise, to stop people's questions, to feel chosen, to prove something? A lot of men don't realize how much of their relationship urgency has nothing to do with love and everything to do with relief. Relief from judgment, relief from loneliness, relief from the feeling that you're falling behind, relief from having to sit with yourself. But relief is not a reason to merge lives. Here's the cost nobody talks about. Premature merging can shrink you. Not dramatically, quietly, slowly. Like a leak you don't notice until the walls are soft. It doesn't happen because your partner is evil. It happens because merging creates a constant, low-grade negotiation. Your time is negotiated. Your energy is negotiated. Your priorities are negotiated. Your sleep, your spending, your calendar, your friendships, your ambitions, your attention, everything becomes a shared surface area. And sharing can be beautiful when it's built on two complete people choosing each other freely. But when it happens too early, before you've built your identity, your resilience, your rhythm, it often turns into a trade. You exchange your sovereignty for the comfort of being accompanied. And that trade is expensive. Let me put it in plain terms. When you're single, your life has elasticity. You can move cities without asking permission. You can switch careers without dragging someone through your uncertainty. You can say yes to a late night opportunity, a spontaneous trip, a demanding program, a risky business idea because your decisions don't require consensus. That freedom isn't just fun, it's formative. The years where you're building your adult life, late 20s, early 30s for some men, later for others, are years where momentum matters. Your habits harden, your standards get set, your confidence gets built or borrowed, your nervous system learns. what normal feels like. If your normal is constant compromise before your core is even established, you don't become a man with a strong center. You become a man shaped by negotiation. And there's a difference between being considerate and being diluted. Considerate is, I can share space without losing myself. Diluted is, I don't know what I want anymore unless someone approves it. A lot of men end up diluted because they were never taught to be whole before they tried to become half of a unit. That's why the smartest move for many men is not to rush into the next relationship. The smartest move is to build a life that doesn't need a relationship to make sense. Because when your life makes sense alone, you stop chasing partnerships like oxygen. You stop confusing attraction with alignment. You stop calling chemistry compatibility. You stop accepting conflict as the price of companionship. You start choosing from clarity. And clarity is a weapon in a culture that wants you desperate. Let's talk about health for a second, because this is where the conversation gets real. Stress is not just what you feel, it's what your body carries. A tense household, unresolved resentment, constant emotional guessing games, walking on eggshells, silent treatment, chronic arguing, passive aggression, none of it needs to be dramatic to be damaging. The body doesn't require a catastrophe to register danger. It just needs consistent instability. A lot of men live in relationships where the atmosphere is heavy, but they tell themselves it's fine because it's not exploding. Meanwhile, their sleep gets worse, their workouts get inconsistent, their appetite changes, their energy drops, their patience gets thin. They start using distractions to cope. More scrolling, more drinking, more late nights, more comfort spending. And because men are often trained to push through, they don't notice the erosion until it shows up as burnout, anxiety, weight gain, chronic tension, or that numb feeling that nothing excites them anymore. Now, I'm not here to say relationships are bad for your health. The evidence on marriage and health is mixed and heavily dependent on relationship quality. A stable, supportive relationship can be a protective factor, but a draining relationship can be one of the most consistent stressors in your life. And men underestimate that cost because they're taught to treat emotional strain as normal. Singlehood, when intentional, removes a massive category of friction. Not all stress. You still have bills, work, family, life. But you remove the daily mental burden of managing another adult's moods, expectations, and unspoken needs. You remove the constant recalibration of, is this going to be a fight? You remove the slow leak of energy from living in misalignment. And once that pressure is gone, something surprising happens. Your nervous system starts to settle. You sleep better because there's no late night tension sitting in the room. You eat more consistently because you aren't negotiating every meal. You work out because you're not emotionally drained from constant conflict. You build routines that actually match your body. You rest without guilt. You focus without interruption. That isn't loneliness, that's peace. And peace is not a luxury. Peace is performance. Peace is longevity. Peace is what lets you build. Now, let's talk about money. Because men love to pretend money doesn't matter until it does. Being single doesn't automatically make you rich, but it does something powerful. It returns financial decisions to one mind, one vision, one set of priorities. No joint spending by drift. No compromise purchases that become long-term obligations. No silent resentment because you invest while the other person spends. No expensive optics. No keeping up appearances. No spending as relationship glue. When you control your money, you control your options. Options are everything for a man's future. Options are what let you leave a job that's crushing you. Options are what let you take a pay cut to learn a new skill. Options are what let you move to a city where your career can grow. Options are what let you take 6 months to build a business without panic. Options are what let you invest early, take calculated risks, and recover if something fails. The strongest men I've met aren't the loudest. They're the ones with runway. The ones who aren't trapped. The ones whose lifestyle isn't built on debt and performance. Singlehood can be the season where you build that runway, not by living like a monk, by living like a strategist. You stop spending to impress. You start spending to build. You buy time. You buy education. You buy health. You buy experiences that expand you instead of purchases that anesthetize you. And because nobody else is in your pocket, you can be brutally honest. Is this aligned with who I'm becoming? That question alone will make you wealthier than most men who are chasing a timeline. Now, here's where it gets deeper. Singlehood isn't just a logistical advantage, it's an identity advantage. When you're alone long enough, you're forced to meet yourself without mirrors. No partner to reflect you, no relationship role to hide behind, no constant validation, just you. And that's uncomfortable at first because a lot of men don't actually know what they feel. They know what they think they should feel. They know what they can explain, but they haven't practiced emotional literacy because no one rewarded it. They were taught to be functional, not honest. Singlehood can be the gym for honesty. It's the season where you discover what you actually want when nobody is negotiating with you. What kind of life do you want to wake up into? What does a good day look like when it's not performative? What does discipline look like for you, not for Instagram? What are your values when nobody is watching? What are your standards when you're not afraid of losing someone? That's not self-help fluff. That's self-definition. And self-definition is the difference between a man who chooses his life and a man who falls into one. A lot of men fear being alone because they confuse solitude with worthlessness. But solitude isn't emptiness. Solitude is space, and space is where standards are born. It's where you realize that I want a relationship is not the same as I want this relationship. It's where you learn to sit with quiet without running to noise. It's where you develop the kind of inner stability that makes you dangerous in a good way. Dangerous to manipulation, dangerous to shame, dangerous to settling. Because once you've built a life you respect, you stop bargaining with yourself. And that's the moment your dating life changes. Not because you become colder, because you become clearer. You stop chasing people who are inconsistent. You stop trying to earn love from someone who doesn't know how to give it. You stop accepting confusion as romance. You start screening for character. You start choosing based on shared values, shared direction, shared maturity. You stop getting distracted by beauty without depth, charm without accountability, attention without effort, and you stop rushing. That's a big one. Rushing into a relationship often creates the very outcome you're trying to avoid: instability. You merge before you know each other. You commit before you've seen how they handle stress, conflict, disappointment, boredom, success, money, family, responsibility. You build a life together on top of hope instead of reality. And hope is not a plan. The men who win long term are not the ones who found someone fastest. They're the ones who built themselves first. Because here's what no one tells you: the best relationships aren't rescue missions. They are partnerships between two people who could be alone and still be fine. Two people who are not dating to fill a hole. Two people who are not using love as anesthesia. Two people who are already complete, who choose each other because it adds something real, not because they're afraid of quiet. That's what you should want. Not a relationship that saves you, a relationship that respects you, not someone who needs you to be smaller so they can feel secure. Someone who can stand next to you while you become more. And that kind of relationship is hard to find when you're desperate. Desperation makes you accept terms you would never sign if you were calm. Desperation makes you ignore red flags because you don't want to start over. Desperation makes you call intensity love because it feels like something. Singlehood, when intentional, detoxes desperation. It gives you the ability to walk away early. It gives you the patience to wait for alignment. It gives you the courage to say, this is good, but it's not right, without needing to justify it with a dramatic reason. Now let's address the big myth. If you stay single, you'll be lonely. Loneliness is real, but it's not the same thing as being alone. Loneliness is not the absence of people. It's the absence of connection and meaning. Some of the loneliest men on earth are married men in houses full of noise, who feel unseen, unheard, and unrespected. Some of the most fulfilled men are single men with deep friendships, purposeful work, and a life that feels like theirs. The difference isn't a relationship status. The difference is whether you've built community on purpose. Because here's the other hidden trap, the couple bubble. When a man gets into a relationship, he often disappears. Friendships fade. Hobbies shrink. The social world narrows. Life becomes two people managing a household, and everything else becomes optional. Then, if the relationship ends, he's not just grieving the woman, he's grieving his entire structure. And he realizes he outsourced his social life to a partnership. That's not love, that's dependency. Singlehood gives you the chance to build a broader life, to become the guy who hosts the dinner, the guy who checks on friends, the guy who mentors, the guy who joins the group, signs up for the class, trains with the team, shows up consistently, not because you're keeping busy, because you're building a life that doesn't collapse when romance is absent. That's mature masculinity. A man who can connect deeply without needing to possess. A man who can love without needing to be saved. A man who can stand alone without turning cold. That's what this is really about. Not anti-love, not anti-marriage, anti-default. Because the default is what traps men. The default is moving in because it feels like the next step. The default is staying because you've already invested time. The default is marrying because everyone expects it. The default is having kids because your parents want grandkids. The default is building a life that looks right from the outside and feels wrong on the inside. I want you to hear this clearly. You do not owe anyone a timeline, not your family, not your friends, not your culture, not your ex, not social media. You owe yourself a life you can respect, and respect comes from living in alignment. Now, does singlehood have downsides? Absolutely. There are nights when silence feels loud. There are holidays when you'll get asked the same tired questions. There are moments when you want someone there. There are days when you wish you could split responsibilities, share rent, share decisions, share the weight. But those moments are not proof that you're failing. They're proof that you're human. And a human life includes seasons. The mistake is believing discomfort means you need to immediately merge with someone. Sometimes discomfort is just the price of growth. Sometimes the silence is where you finally hear what you've been avoiding. Sometimes the loneliness is an invitation to deepen friendships, to rebuild community, to repair your relationship with yourself, to learn how to ask for support like a grown man instead of pretending you don't need it. A lot of men would rather be in the wrong relationship than face the work of building themselves, because building yourself requires patience. It requires accountability. It requires you to confront your habits. It requires you to look at your life and admit where you've been lazy, where you've been distracted, where you've been numbing yourself. Singlehood removes the distractions that let you hide. And that's why it's powerful, because it forces a question most men avoid. Who are you when nobody is impressed? Who are you when nobody's validating you? Who are you when there's no audience, no relationship, no performance? If you can answer that honestly, you become a different kind of man. A man who dates from abundance, not scarcity. A man who builds a life worth sharing, not a life begging to be filled. A man who chooses a partner because she matches his direction, not because she quiets his insecurity. That's the kind of man who can actually lead. And let me be clear about what lead means here. Not control, not dominate, not act like feelings don't exist. Lead means you can take responsibility for your own internal state. You can regulate yourself. You can speak clearly. You can keep promises. You can make decisions based on values, not moods. You can handle conflict without collapsing or exploding. You can give love without losing yourself. You can receive love without needing it to fix you. That man is rare. And he's rare because most men never take the time to build him. They rush into a relationship and try to learn maturity while under pressure. Then they wonder why everything feels heavy. So if you're single right now, I'm not going to tell you to enjoy it while it lasts, like it's some temporary accident. I'm going to challenge you to treat it like a training ground. Build your body, not for looks, for energy and longevity. Build your money, not for status, for options and freedom. Build your mind. Learn skills that raise your value. Build your friendships. Become dependable and connected. Build your routines. Create a life that runs well. Build your emotional range. Learn to name what you feel and why. Build your standards. Decide what you will and will not tolerate. Build your mission, something that matters beyond comfort. Do that, and you'll notice something. You stop fearing the future. Because whether you stay single for a season or eventually choose partnership, you're no longer building on sand. You're building on a foundation. And foundation changes everything. Because when the foundation is strong, love becomes a choice, not a requirement. Marriage becomes a possibility, not a finish line. Commitment becomes a partnership, not a rescue. You stop asking, will someone complete me? You start asking, does this person genuinely fit the life I'm building? And if the answer is no, you don't panic. You don't bargain. You don't cling. You keep building. That's not loneliness. That's sovereignty. That's a man who understands that being alone is not the same thing as being lost. And if you ever do choose a relationship from that place, it will be different. It won't be rushed. It won't be performative. It won't be built on fear. It will be built on two whole people choosing resonance over convenience. So here's the final point, and it's the one I want to land on. Staying single is not a failure mode. It is not less than. It is not a gap in your story. For many men, it's the chapter where they finally stop living for approval and start living for purpose. It's a chapter where you stop negotiating your identity and start owning it. It's a chapter where you become the kind of man who can love well because he can stand alone first. If you're single right now, don't treat it like a waiting room. Treat it like preparation. Treat it like construction. Treat it like the season where you build something nobody can take from you. And then, if love comes, it won't be something you chase to feel complete. It will be something you choose because your life is already complete, and the right person makes it even richer. That's the difference between a man who is looking for someone to save him and a man who is ready to share his life. Choose the second man. Build him now.